What's going on, YouTube? Bacon here, bringing you another video. This one gonna be my week 6 battle for the VPL. This week we're going up against Coach Zack and DontHaxMePls. Don't Haxorus me, please. Don't Hax me, please. The mascot's Haxorus. Zack is another alumni in the league. This is the first time he's actually participated in the main league. He was a part of the Unspoken Meme League during the summer, which we no longer will talk about on this channel. But Zack is a very good battler. I know he doesn't have a whole lot of time to devote to the league in terms of prep and stuff, because his work schedule is insane. So we actually ended up playing this game at like 11:30 on a Sunday, which, you know, for college people doesn't sound so late. But I've turned into a little bit of an old man in my career here, in that I need actual sleep. So I was pretty tired by the time we started this battle. I'm sure Zack was exhausted as well. And you can probably see it during the battle. And Zack, of course, kind of needing to rush his prep because he doesn't have a whole lot of time to work on things. But he's still got a very threatening team. I know he's kind of brought the same 6 quite frequently, so I kind of knew what to expect coming into it. But just really quickly, I'll go over what he's got. He's got Volcarona, Hippowdon, Empoleon, Crobat, Vanillix, Ferroseed, Mega Alakazam, Kartana, Zygarde 10%, Guzzlord, and Rotom. I don't think he even has bothered to designate a Z status user. I guess it would be Kartana would be his best option. He could run something like Z Tailwind Kartana, which is actually pretty potent. Especially because Kartana has like Leaf Blade, so basically would just be critting the hell out of you if he goes for that. But yeah, I was pretty sure what 6 I was going to see, just because it's basically the same 6 he's brought every week. He just changed the sets up a little bit because he, like I said, doesn't have that much time to prep. But even kind of knowing what I was going to see coming into this, it was pretty difficult to deal with. Megazam plus Kartana is a really potent offensive core, kind of supplemented by that Zygarde 10%, which has a great speed tier and can hit really hard. Thousand Arrows, of course, being the most spammable offensive move in the game. Really only resisted by grass and bug types. Obviously, it can knock down your flying types and such. Levitating Mons, whatever. So just really potent offensive core to deal with. And he's got a great defensive core with things like Ferroseed, Hippowdon, and Empoleon. He can really, even just Hippowdon and Empoleon, which is what he's been bringing most of the time, is really really nice defensive core. And of course the Volcarona is a really potent setup threat, so we have to be worried about that in the back. So kind of all that in mind, just going to get into a little bit of what I brought this week. First up here, we got Klefki coming back once again. I believe Klefki's come to every match since I picked it up. So that kind of shows you how critical it was to grab off the free agent wire there when I made those transactions. Pretty standard Klefki set. I've got leftovers, max Spadef, max HP to help me deal with the Mega Alakazam a little bit better. I've got Thunder Wave, Spikes, Play Rough, and Magnet Rise. And of course, Prankster ability. Spikes are really nice for his team because what he's been bringing is all grounded. So I knew Spikes would be pretty decent in this matchup. Thunder Wave is really nice to hit pretty much everything on his team. Bar the Zygarde, I can Thunder Wave things like Volcarona to prevent it from sweeping me. I can Thunder Wave Empoleon to get some free turns on it. Thunder Wave the Alakazam and the Kartana to slow them down. Just really good in this game, the Prankster Thunder Wave option at least. Play Rough obviously hitting things like the Zygarde pretty hard. It hits the Guzzlord, which would otherwise wall me because of Prankster. Like I wouldn't be able to Thunder Wave that thing. I would be able to set up Spikes actually, is how it works. And the Magnet Rise is specifically for the Hippowdon. I can Magnet Rise on the Hippowdon and continue to Spike stack him. I think he's more pressured to defog this match, and he doesn't have a Rapid Spinner. So I don't really care too much about him getting up rocks versus me, because if I start Spike stacking him and get up my own Stealth Rocks, he's pretty much either forced to defog or have everything come in and take a bunch of hazard damage, specifically the Volcarona if I have Stealth Rocks up. So that's kind of the plan here. It's just kind of hazard stack him a little bit here with Klefki, and I've got Stealth Rocks later on the team. Next up, we got a kind of interesting Abomasnow set here. Wampa coming back for another game. I haven't used Mega Abomasnow too great to this point, but I thought I had a really good matchup this week, specifically, like I mentioned, because of the Hippowdon. I can basically come in on Hippowdon for free and fire off either of my dual stab attacks if I choose. I've actually got Substitute on this set as well, so I'm Substitute, Blizzard, Rock Tomb, and Giga Drain. Going back and forth on whether or not I needed Ice Shard to help me deal with things like the Zygarde or a potentially chipped Mega Alakazam. But I felt like Substitute was more valuable in the long run. I can come in on things like Zygarde and Hippowdon, bluff the Ice Shard on the Zygarde or something like that. He probably wouldn't OHKO me anyways. and just get up a free substitute. If I stay in regular form with my soundproof ability, Volcarona can't bug buzz me through substitute. So with my substitute up, with Volcarona, even if it brings in the Volcarona, which would normally resist my dual stab, I do have just enough attack investment to guarantee in regular form that I OHKO no bulk Volcarona with Rock Tomb. So that was kind of the idea here, was basically get Mega Abomasnow in on Zygarde or Powdon early game and just kill something. Obviously Empoleon's a pretty decent switch in, but I can kind of stall that thing out with Giga Drain and get my health back. He's really not doing too much back to me, and weakening Empoleon is actually really important for my my main win con this match, which I'll get to in a second here. So I think Abomasnow had a pretty good matchup here. His thing's really hard with just the dual stab, Blizzard, and Giga Drain. So I had no problem bringing it this week, for sure. Next up, we got Drybones, the Alolan Marowak. I think this is only the second game I brought Alolan Marowak to. I actually don't think it fits on my team super well, but I don't have any transactions left. And it still does have some Trick Room compatibility with like Claydol and stuff like that, and so it fills out my typings nicely. But it had a pretty good matchup on paper this week. I can threaten things like the Kartana. It won't OHKO me with knockoff. I'm predicting Scarf Kartana this week for things like my Greninja and my Koko. So I'm pretty sure he'd bring Scarf Kartana, which wouldn't OHKO me with knockoff. I could obviously OHKO it back with Flare Blitz. I think I have enough bulk in this thing to live a Shadow Ball from Modest Mega Alakazam. I'm expecting him to run Modest because he can still outspeed Koko with it. And obviously it would just hit a little bit harder. So I can live a Modest Shadow Ball and OHKO that thing with Shadow Bone. Basically, if I get this thing in on the right Pokemon, I can get a kill. Even Adamant, I've got Adamant Flare Blitz here. Even Adamant Flare Blitz is a roll to OHKO no Fizz Def Empoleon, so max HP, no Fizz Def is potentially OHKO'd by a Flare Blitz. And again, weakening the Empoleon is really important for my team. Really, the only thing this doesn't appreciate on his side of the field is the Powdon, which I can also potentially 2-hit KO with a Flare Blitz. If I have like a Spike Up and a Powdon comes in on a Flare Blitz, I can potentially 2-hit KO that thing. I got Low Kick only really for the Guzzlord in case he happened to bring that, because it would resist my dual stab. And I've got Stealth Rocks as well, because I am predicting that I'll be able to force some switches here. I can also live hits from the Volcarona if I'm in on it. But I'm predicting to live some, or force some switches here with Marowak and be able to get up my Stealth Rocks, which are obviously really nice to pressure, specifically the Volcarona. Take off 50% of that thing's health right off the bat coming in would be really nice. So Marowak just hits really hard this matchup. If he doesn't have the right Pokemon in on it, it gets a kill. So I kind of liked it this week, even without the Trick Room option. Obviously, I didn't end up bringing my Claydol, as you can see. Next up, we got Greninja, Frogchamp come back once again. Choice Scarf again this week, just because my opponent has the Mega Alakazam and what I'm predicting to be a Choice Scarf Kartana. I want to be able to outrun those things. I also outrun +1 Volcarona if he goes for Quiver Dance. I have Rock Slide, Scald, HP Fire, and U-Turn. In the long run, maybe I should have run Ice Beam over something like U-Turn, or maybe even HP Fire on this set, because Kartana's special bulk is obviously abysmal. I would have been a little bit harder pressed versus the Ferrothorn, or Ferroseed, excuse me, without HP Fire, but he didn't end up bringing that, of course. But I think the set overall was kind of the best way to deal with his team as a whole. Like I mentioned, Ice Beam might have been the more useful play here to hit something like Crobat or OHKO the Zygarde. But overall, I was pretty happy with the Greninja set. Just come back yet again. Greninja is my kill leader on the team. I think it might actually be close before this battle to leading the league in kills. Torn, as always, of course, but max special attack, a little bit in physical attack to guarantee I kill that Volcarona with Rock Slide and the rest of his speed. Just has a good matchup this on paper here. Great U-turn to force out the Mega Alakazam. Obviously, I don't OHKO it because I'm not Protean, but U-turn's going to put in a massive chunk of damage on that Alakazam, so he's really going to be pressured to switch it out if I'm in on him, which means I can get into something for free depending on what he decides to switch in on a U-turn. So really good matchup, I think, for Greninja on paper this week. Hoping it can put in some work once again. Next up, we got Whitney the Miltank. He really does not deal with Miltank very well. This is Max Fizdef Miltank with leftovers, Toxic, Milk Drink, Seismic Toss, and Heal Bell. Sap Sipper ability, so I can take on Leaf Blade from the Kartana. I didn't feel like Thick Fat was particularly useful this week because Volcarona could pretty much blow me away with like +1 Bug Buzzes or Buginium Zs anyways. So I felt like Sap Sipper was the more useful ability in case he locks himself into Leaf Blade. Although I don't really predict he'll be clicking it very much this match in the first place based on what I brought. But Toxic is specifically for the Powdon. Once again, trying to whittle things down for my main win con, which, as you can probably see in the back there, is Minior. Toxic to whittle down the Hippowdon is really nice. Even if he Toxics me, I can just Heal Bell back. Obviously, he has more Toxics than I have Heal Bells, but he's not going to be able to stay there and spam it once he's Toxic. He'll have to click Slack Off, he'll have to switch out, something like that. Seismic Toss just kind of gets good damage on the entire team. Allows me to whittle down things like the Empoleon, which I otherwise couldn't Toxic, of course. And Milk Drink's just nice to keep me healthy. Besides that, the Milk Tank basically just sits on all of his physical offense. I'm not 2-hit KO'd by Banded Outrage from Zygarde. I'm not 2-hit KO'd even by Sacred Sword from Scarf Kartana as long as my leftovers are on me. So just a huge problem for his team to deal with in general, actually, is Whitney the Miltank here. I can basically just Toxic him, sit on him, spread some chip around with Seismic Toss, and be pretty happy that way. So keeping Miltank healthy is kind of a priority in this match. And last up here, we got Death Star Minior coming back once again. This week, I actually am bringing a Shell Smash set. We got White Herb, Shell Smash, Substitute, Earthquake, and Acrobatics. Actually very bulky this week. I've got 220 HP because I really didn't feel like the speed was necessary. It was basically Shell Smash or bust this game anyways. And after a Shell Smash, I have like 28 speed investment. After a Shell Smash, I should be able to outspeed even Scarf Kartana or +1 Volcarona, all that jazz. Once I've Shell Smashed. So, actually, I believe might have even made it to creep potential Scarf Crobat for whatever reason, but I really didn't need a lot of speed investment to do that. So the rest went into HP, and I'm max attack Adamant. I can OHKO the Hippowdon and Empoleon as long as they're both at 50 or below. So basically, the plan this game is to get Hippowdon and Empoleon, because I'm predicting Shukaberry and Empoleon for like my Zygarde and my Nidoking. I basically just have to get those two Pokemon to 50% or below, and get up a clean Shell Smash with Minior, and I basically win. Banded Extreme Speed from Zygarde does, I think, 26% max to this set. Or maybe it's 30% max to this set. So there's a kind of small window I have to hit, because obviously I have to be in my Shields Down form to have the speed and attack that I want. That's what kind of the substitute is for. I'm predicting the Hippowdon to have Whirlwind, so obviously I can't set up all that thing. Normally it wouldn't be able to touch me without Whirlwind, but I can't set up all that thing's alive, is my kind of thought process going into the game, because he could just Whirlwind me out as long as he's at enough health to live in Acrobatics. So Shell Smash, Substitute, Earthquake, and Acrobatics basically just puts in the work on his team. And like I mentioned, it's my primary win con this week. So I'm hoping I can get a Minior sweep going here. It's looking kind of primed for it. He did bring the 6 I was kind of expecting, because it's, like I mentioned, the 6 that he normally brings. But yeah, let's just get right into the match. At team preview here, I'm thinking he's going to want to lead either Hippowdon or Empoleon, potentially Zygarde, just because those all would deal with my Marowak, which would otherwise basically just claim a kill the first turn of the match, or at least put a huge dent in something like Hippowdon. So I'm predicting him to lead one of those 3 on the right there, and my Miltank walls all of them. So I'm just going to lead off with Miltank here, and he actually ends up leading with the Kartana. So leading off with Marowak there would have been kind of nice. I could have gotten rid of this Kartana if he stayed in to knock me off or anything like that. But I'm just going to Seismic Toss this thing, get off a little bit of chip damage. Like I mentioned, I'm not 2-hit KO'd by Sacred Sword, because I have my leftovers intact. But he clicks Knockoff, probably predicting my Marowak switch in on what seemed like an obvious Sacred Sword. But now I super wall this Kartana, assuming it's Choice Scarf, so I can just go for Seismic Toss once again here. If he goes into Empoleon, that's great chip for me. And if he goes into the Hippowdon like he does here, I can just Toxic that thing. So get a little bit of Seismic Toss chip off on the Hippowdon, predicting him to either go for Rocks or a Toxic of his own, but I'm, like I mentioned, fine just trading Toxics here because I do have the Heal Bell. So I'm just going to kind of keep sitting here with Miltank. I think it was at this point in the game that Dave chimed in and said that I have a Miltank problem. But I just love this Pokemon. It's so good in the Draft League format. It's usually kind of tier 4 or below, so it's kind of nice to scoop in the lower tiers. It provides great team utility with Heal Bell, Stealth Rock, Toxic, all that kind of stuff. And you can see it's kind of doing a little bit of a Miltank sit here. I can just keep Seismic Tossing down this Hippowdon, weakening that thing a little bit. For my Minior in the back, he does Toxic me. Like I mentioned, I really don't care about Toxic from this Miltank. And now he's pretty much forced to slack off with the Hippowdon because it's way too weak right now to be a reliable switch into things like my Minior and my my Marowak. So I'm just going to go for the Heal Bell here on what I'm predicting to be another slack off, or a slack off, which he does go for. And now I can just Milk Drink myself. He's seen that I have Heal Bell now. He's not going to want to stay in to Toxic me again because he's going to be taking a ton of Toxic chip on the next turn if he does that. So I'm just going to Milk Drink, pretty much back up to full here. I'll be a little bit shy because I don't have my leftovers anymore, as he does bring the Kartana back out. This time I'm pretty much expecting him to go for a Sacred Sword, because he really doesn't have a reason not to. He does have Stealth Rocks up, so my Marowak's going to take some significant chip if I bring it in on a Sacred Sword. But I'm just going to stay in here and Milk Drink once again. Like I mentioned, still not 2-hit KO'd by Sacred Sword from Scarf Kartana, so I can kind of like guarantee that he's going for the Sacred Sword here. And I'm actually predicting him to switch out here because I'm thinking, okay, if he's Choice Scarf, he's not going to want to let my Marowak in for free. So I'm just going to go for another Seismic Toss as he switches into the Alakazam, which is a good play on his end because, like I mentioned, it would have caught my Marowak and been able to kill me with Shadow Ball after the Rocks damage. But Seismic Toss here, just going to get a little bit of chip off on the Alakazam, and I can finally get in my Klefki. Miltank sat on the field for 8 turns. It was crazy. Great start to the game for Miltank. Great start for me. Basically, as the game plan was. But Alakazam here going for Recover. That's a little unfortunate because now I can't OHKO him with U-turn anymore for my Greninja. He's not in range anymore. I'm just going to get up a Spike. He definitely should fear a Thunder Wave here on his Alakazam. He doesn't want to eat that Para. So I'm just going to get my first Spike of the game. Again, pressuring his entire team because it's grounded. But he makes a good play here and gets in the Zygarde for free. And now I have a little bit of a problem. I know he's going to go for 1,000 Arrows here, but I'm going to go into my Miltank, which I do eat this fucking 1,000 Arrows with. Look at this Miltank go, man. Just chewing. That is banded 1,000 Arrows from a Jolly Zygarde, by the way, based on the calc. He does go for the crit here, which is a good play. Like, I had to go for a Milk Drink here anyways. So he might as well go for the crit 1,000 Arrows. But now he's got to get out of here. I'm just going to Milk Drink again so I can be nice and healthy and be able to take on Kartana and the Zygarde later in the game. So Miltank still putting in the work here. He gets the Alakazam back in. Not too much of a big deal because, once again, I can go Klefki. I'm expecting him to have at least Focus Blast, if not like HP Fire or anything like that. But I basically have to go into Klefki here. I don't have any other really good switch-ins on my team. And I can threaten him once again with a Thunder Wave or just get up another Spike. He does go for Focus Blast here and connects. No big deal. He's still staying in regular, by the way, so he can avoid all that Magic Guard damage, like my Spike, his Hippowdon Sand, my Abomasnow's Hail. Like, all that kind of stuff is a good thing for him to not be Megaing for, because that's a lot of chip that he'd be taking. And I'm just going to go for Play Rough here as he goes for an HP Fire. Obviously not knocking me out here. Going for the Play Rough gets a massive amount of damage off on this Alakazam. And basically I'm content to sack my Klefki here, but he's not willing to risk the 1,000 Arrows still, or the Thunder Wave still. I should have just gone for Play Rough here, predicting a potential recover, but he gets the Zygarde in for free again as I go for another Spike. Like I mentioned, I was kind of content to sack it off here, but it's not too much of a loss because that Spike's really nice for me. Here I don't go for my third Spike because I'm predicting him to double back into the Alakazam, because obviously last time I went Miltank and just ate this 1,000 Arrows. But he just goes for the 1,000 Arrows and knocks me out. It was a little bit of a ballsy prediction on my end, but I really didn't lose too much by making it, I felt. Especially because now I can get in my Abomasnow. I know he's locked into 1,000 Arrows, so he's not going to want to stay in. I'm just going to go for Substitute here as he brings in the Empoleon. Like I mentioned, I stayed in regular in case he elected to go Volcarona, so I could kill that thing with Rock Tomb. But going Empoleon's fine for me. I need chip on this thing anyways. The Powdon's pretty weakened. It's toxic. And if I get some chip off on this Empoleon, I can win with my Minior in the back. So I'm just going to Mega Evolve here and start clicking Giga Drain. As you can see, Ice Beam does not break my Substitute from this Empoleon. And Giga Drain's actually doing a pretty decent chunk of damage considering it's an Empoleon and it's got great natural special bulk. And I'm just going to be able to get some health back here with Giga Drain. The Hail's chipping him down a little bit too, which is working out pretty nice for me. Wampa's job this match is basically to break through his defensive core. His Empoleon and his Powdon are pretty much beat down by my Abomasnow here because I wasn't predicting him to carry Flash Cannon. I was expecting Ice Beam from my Zygarde, Scald, probably Toxic, and either Defog or Stealth Rocks. And here, instead of going for another Substitute, which I know he wouldn't be able to break after he hits me, I just go for Giga Drain because I don't want him to... I want him to basically choose between getting damage off of my Abomasnow and defogging. Defogging's still kind of nice for me because obviously I've got 3 Stealth Rock weak Mons left. But even if he defogs away my Spikes, it's no big deal. I can get up Stealth Rocks later, which is really the one thing I want up to pressure the Volcarona. But he leaves up the hazards. And I'm still at a decent amount of HP with my Abomasnow here. I don't want to sack it off yet, especially because I don't want to give this Kartana a Beast Boost. Pretty sure he's just going to go for Sacred Sword here, so I go into my Alolan Marowak, but he actually just goes for Smart Strike, which I guess was also a fair play. Still would have been walled by the Miltank, but it would at least hit my Marowak here. And I'm just going to go for Stealth Rocks here. He can't kill me with another Smart Strike here. Even if he gets a crit, I believe I'm out of range, or it's at least a damage roll. Maybe he gets a crit. So I'm just going to go for my Stealth Rock here. His Defogger is dead, unless he's running Defog on Kartana. So Stealth Rocks are probably going to be here to stay, is my thinking, to hit the Volcarona. Here I make a little bit of a misplay, and I decide to save my Alola Marowak. It really doesn't do too much for me at this point in the game. I should just Flare Blitz the Hippowdon for damage here. And at this point in the match, I've actually seen his whole set, or I'm assuming he has Earthquake still. I can get into Abomasnow for free, which is fine. Obviously, being able to get rid of this Hippowdon would be nice. So here, right now, I've seen his whole set. He's got Stealth Rock, Toxic, Earthquake, and Slack Off. Wampa here, again, pretty much walls this thing. I could go for Substitute, but then I'd only be at 1 HP. 1% HP, and if he goes hard Volcarona, he could Bug Buzz me through Substitute at this point. So I'm just going to go for Blizzard here. I really wasn't going to bring in Abomasnow later in the game because, like I mentioned, I don't have Ice Shard anymore. So it really had no usefulness left. So clicking Blizzard got me a kill. That was the play I was going to make. Clicking Giga Drain would potentially have allowed in the Volcarona, and I'd have to sack off my Abomasnow anyways. So I felt like Blizzard was the better play. Giga Drain would have gotten some health back, of course, but I still would have been in range of Kartana. I still would have been in range of Alakazam. I still would have been in range of Volcarona, and even a Banded Outrage from Zygarde. So I really felt like there was no reason to click Giga Drain there and risk him getting in Volcarona. So I'm just going to let him kill me with the Kartana here. I do have Choice Scarf Greninja. At this point, if he switches out, he dies to Spikes coming back in. So yeah, he dies to Spikes coming back in. I'd pause it here, actually, because there's a note I wanted to make. My Minior, I should have known this. Instead of going Abomasnow here, my Minior actually 100% walled that Hippowdon, because as long as my shields are up, he can't Toxic me. And Earthquake obviously doesn't hit me. He didn't have Whirlwind, so he couldn't force me out. So I actually could have gone free Minior on the Hippowdon, substituted, and then Shell Smash the following turn and just won the game. So, like I mentioned, we played this game kind of late in the night, so Mark at the time did not realize that. I actually kind of picked that up over the course of the last couple days looking at the match. I could have just substituted and then Shell Smashed on the Hippowdon and won the game. Like, there was no reason for me not to do that. Obviously, getting in, at the time, I was thinking, oh, gotta get in Abomasnow, gotta clean out this defensive core so my Minior can sweep. But I was forgetting that he'd already shown his whole set and that he didn't have Whirlwind on it. So I could have just won the game with Minior from there. Wasn't thinking, didn't do it, and now I'm actually not in such a great position anymore. My Abomasnow's dead, my Klefki's dead. At least this Kartana's gonna be dead, but now I have to kind of finesse my way around this game a little bit more than I wanted to. I could have just had kind of a clean 5-0 there with Minior, but I didn't end up going for it, and that's gonna really cost me going forward, as you guys will see. But I'm just going to go with my Greninja here. Like I mentioned, pretty sure this is Choice Scarf Kartana, but I do outspeed that. He's in range of Scald. If he switches out, he dies to Spikes. So I'm just going to freely Scald here. He has no good switch-ins. And knock out the Kartana. This obviously baits in the Alakazam or the Zygarde at this point, which I really don't have great switch-ins for anymore. But he is going to go into, I believe, the Zygarde here, because he knows I'm Scarf and he can live a hit. Yes, he does go into the Zygarde here. That thing's getting close to in range of Scald, but it's not quite there yet. And I make a huge misplay here. I should have just sacked Marowak, but I was thinking, like, try to save for differential, because you guys probably know my differential is not very good this season right now. And it might matter for playoffs later on. But I'm actually 2-hit KO'd by Banded Outrage because I don't have my leftovers anymore. So a huge misplay on my end, because I basically just sacked off my Miltank, even though it would have come in and walled this thing after I sacked the Marowak. Now I've taken a game where I had pretty good control, could have won with Minior, still had decent control, could have sacked the Marowak here, and now it's like really tight. Like, either of us could win this game at this point. I make another misplay here. I didn't actually calc this. I came in, I was like, oh, I'm bulky, I should be able to live a Banded Outrage. I don't. Don't live a Banded Outrage with my Minior, so I can't even get my Shell Smash up and force a KO. So now it's looking real bleak. Obviously can't go Marowak here. It's going to die to Outrage. I have to go into Greninja here. And like I mentioned, he's not in Scald range. And I don't have Ice Beam. So I have to U-turn here to get enough chip off on the Zygarde to potentially sweep with Scald. He goes into the Volcarona. Thankfully does not get the Flame Body on me. You'll see that comes into play later on. I didn't get the Flame Body here. So U-turn out on the Volcarona. Just going to be able to sack off my Marowak here like I should have done in the first place instead of going Miltank. Or really, I should have sacked it way back when the Hippowdon came out, because I could have got in a free Minior to set up and sweep. But he's going to knock me out with what looks like Hidden Power Ground on his Volcarona. No big deal. Now Greninja's just got to do it, man. The Alakazam's in range. The Volcarona's in range. The Zygarde's in range. I just click Scald here, and that can clean up. However, Banded E-Speed is, I believe, a 50 to 62 roll or something like that on Greninja, or 52 to 62 roll. It's basically a 50% chance to to kill me from the range I'm at. He goes Alakazam first. Not really sure why. This thing dies to Scald. Even after he Megas, he's not going to eat this. So I knock out the Alakazam, and like I mentioned, it's coming down to a roll on the Zygarde. Is he going to be able to OHKO me or kill me from here with the extreme speed? Literally a 50-50 split. So we've taken a game that we had in hand, still had in hand, choked away, and we still got a chance to win it here. I just have to not die to this extreme speed from the Zygarde. He is guaranteed in range of my Scald, assuming he doesn't have some crazy amount of bulk on this Zygarde. Am I going to live this extreme speed? He didn't click it. He didn't click the extreme speed. It turns out Zach actually calced Zygarde 50% and thought he lived Scald. So he didn't end up clicking the extreme speed. I think in general he should have clicked extreme speed anyways, because if he was Zygarde 50 and he thinks he lives, extreme speed is a 50% roll to knock me out in the first place. If he crits me, I lose, and he could just extreme speed me twice if he thinks he lives. So the play there was definitely to extreme speed me. I think Zach realized that after the game, but obviously the miscalc there costing him pretty dearly in that case. But like I mentioned, we played this game mad late at night, so I'm sure we were both real tired, and obviously it showed in the match. We both made a few pretty big misplays, especially at the end there. But I do end up coming out with a 1-0 win. I think, no disrespect to Zach, I think Zach played pretty well this game in general, with the exception of not clicking E-Speed there. But I think this is the worst I've played in a win, if that makes sense. Because, like, I had the win cons, I had everything set up, and I just did it wrong. Like, sacking the Marowak to the Hippowdon, getting a Minior, clicking Shell Substitute, and then subsequently Shell Smash, I win from there. Like, the game was over. But I didn't, at the time, realize that the Hippowdon didn't have Whirlwind, just because I wasn't thinking. So I don't even sack the Marowak, I go hard Abomasnow for whatever reason. I kill the Hippowdon, great. I have to sack off the Abomasnow. Marowak's only useful as a sack later on anyways, and now I don't have anything to set up on with my Minior freely. So basically I just played the end game really poorly. I think I started the game really well, especially with the pressure from Miltank defensively versus his team with Toxic and the Seismic Toss and Milk Drink and everything. I think that set was really good. But I think I just really botched the end game here. Managed to come out with a win. Really good game to Zach. Really close game. And I'm going to try to do better next week. Is pretty much all I can say at this point. Next week, I believe we've got Dave, who I think is sitting at 5-1 currently in our division. So it's a really big game here against Dave. He beat me the last time we played. So definitely looking for a little bit of a revenge game versus Dave. I'm still not a huge fan of the team that I drafted this season. I think that's kind of shown itself in some of my play. But I think I can still do it. Like, I think I can still make playoffs. I think I can still win with this team. I'm just going to have to be a little bit more creative than maybe what I've been doing and play a little bit better than I've been playing like the last couple weeks. I think I played reasonably well against John, but here I definitely didn't play up to the standards that I would normally hold myself. So hopefully we can play a little bit better next week versus Dave. He's got a really good matchup on paper versus me, so I'm going to have to come up with some creative sets on ways to win. The last note that I'll make here is that I did end up dropping Zygarde 50%. Even though I do still think it's a top 5 Pokemon in the format, I already had 2 ground types on my team, and I just don't, like, I wasn't bringing it. I brought it to 2 games out of 6, which is not what you want from a tier 1 Pokemon. So I did what I should have done in the first place and dropped that Zygarde for Kyurem Black. Kyurem Black is a Pokemon I'm very familiar with. I had it all of Season 1 of the VPL. It got like 16 kills in 7 games. It was the MVP that season. It's a Pokemon I love using. Just a great wall breaker, which I think the team's a little bit lacking. Like, I have some wall breaking potential in things like Abomasnow and Marowak, but those are slow Pokemon that kind of rely on Trick Room a little bit to wall break. Kyurem Black has a good speed tier. Obviously, Free Shock Icium Z is a nuke. Just roasts non-steel types, basically. And it pairs really nicely, I think, with Tapu Koko, the Electric Train being able to boost Fusion Bolt's damage for bulky water types, things like that. I think Kyurem Black's just in general the better pairing. It's the thing I should have drafted in the first place. So the team's a little bit wonky now that I have it, and Abomasnow, and I've got like a lot of rock weaknesses, I guess. But I do think it fits better on the team than Zygarde, because I just really wasn't bringing Zygarde. I felt like not only did it not have good matchups going forward for the rest of the season, but I wasn't using it anyways. Like, I was opting for things like Nidoking to give me a little bit more wall breaking potential than Zygarde can offer. Zygarde's a great setup sweeper, don't get me wrong, but I think that's not really what my team needed. I think I needed a little bit more wall breaking to pair with my great kind of U-turn Volt Switch core with Greninja and Tapu Koko. So I'm excited to use it in the future. Kieran Black is a monster. Love that Pokemon. Glad to have it back on the team. But going forward, hopefully we can make playoffs here. We're now sitting at 4-2, but our differential's not so great. And Pace still has a lot of games to play. He fell a little bit behind because he's been on vacation, but he's kind of nipping on our heels. He's only got 2 losses, so if he starts winning some of those makeup games, it's going to be tight coming down the stretch to make playoffs. So I got to keep playing well from here on out is the hope. But thank you guys very much for watching. If you did to this point, hopefully I'll see you guys on the next video. Have a good one. Bye-bye.